Bitcoin is built by the people for the people.
Bitcoin economically arms everybody.
Bitcoin does represent freedom.
Bitcoin can make the world a better place.
And there's nothing you can do to stop it.
We did 60 interviews all over the world. So we had about 70 hours of content, and just going through the 70 hours and, filtering it down to 90 minutes, that it's hard work. I mean, like Kelly said, there's a lot of good information. There's probably 20 hours of good information there. So we can't make a 20-hour movie. So what we actually did was, we made the movie, and then we made what's called God Bless Bitcoin Layer 2. So Layer 2 will, in about 2 weeks, have the interviews that we did. So if people want to take a deeper dive, you'll on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, you'll be able to go to those and watch the movie, but you also have access to 28 of the interviews.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with two brilliant minds, Brian and Kelly, behind the God Bless Bitcoin documentary. How are you doing?
We're well. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to pick your brains and learn all about the God Bless documentary. And if you don't mind, we can just jump into it.
Sure. Wonderful.
Fantastic. So what was the inspiration behind this beautiful documentary?
That's him.
Yeah. About 4 years ago, I read a book, Thank God for Bitcoin, about the Christian views and how they intersect with Bitcoin. And I just got curious and like what the other religions say about, in their sacred texts about money and how that relates to Bitcoin. And I just took a deep dive into that. And, I was just satisfying my own curiosity. And then after I did that, I had this like little internal voice saying I need to write a book or, tell this story about what I learned. And I don't, I've never written a book, never made a movie. And I asked Kelly for help to help me, draft that story and go out and, build it. And she agreed to do it. And so, about 2.5 years ago, we started on this journey and started to create this movie to basically just tell the story that was inside my head and inside of my heart.
That's incredible. And thank you so much for producing it, because I really enjoy it. I watched it a couple of times actually. And you had some fantastic guests from, of course, Michael Saylor, Kiyosaki, Jeff Booth, and David Bailey. How did you manage to involve them into the movie?
Yeah, so I've been building Bitcoin and blockchain companies for 11 years. And so these are just people in my network. And so we're all friends. So I just called them and asked them if they would be willing to be interviewed to talk about the ethical and, moral aspects of Bitcoin. Something that, a lot of people don't talk about. And they agreed to do it. So
what was your hope on the impact on the people watching the movie?
So the reason he brought me into the project is because I'm a writing teacher and I've been in education for 30 years. So for both of us, it was important to make an educational piece. And that's what we're hoping to do, is to show people, hey, there's an alternate financial system out there that probably would work better for you or might work better for you. Let's tell you a little bit about it to help you understand and give you that first taste of what Bitcoin is, why we believe it's a more moral and religious form of money than what we're all currently using. And so the whole goal was just to educate.
When it comes to Bitcoin, there are so many different aspects, right? You have the technical component, you have the philosophical part. I mean, how have you decided to balance both of them into this documentary?
Well, that's kind of where I came in, because he has been in this space much longer than I have. So his understanding is deeper. But there are very few people out there who would want to watch a movie about Bitcoin. If you already know that much about Bitcoin, you're not interested in the movie about it. And our target audience is beginners and people who are new to Bitcoin. And so it was, for me, I would tell him, I think that's too complicated. Let's not focus on, for example, mining and the intricacies of mining or how that works, because I think that's intimidating. I think you need to take a macro view of Bitcoin, what it is, how it basically works, and then understand why you should explore it more. This is just the first step for people who are new to Bitcoin. In my opinion, it's your first taste. And now to get comfortable, you should go learn more about it. And I would say hope.com is a wonderful free tool for people to download watch all kinds of information about Bitcoin. You can go as deep or as shallow as you want there. But really, it was trying to give people a digestible first look at Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, one of my goals was to take the 11 years of knowledge I have and compact it into 1.5 hours. So just to give people a primer to, these are the basics. That's the moral and, ethical aspects of Bitcoin. And if this is interesting to you, then this should be your first step on your journey.
Are you planning a sequel? Is there going to be a part 2 coming out soon?
No, we are one and done. You have to bow down to anybody who makes film or documentaries. It is extraordinarily difficult. It's tedious work, and I bow down. It's a craft. It is definitely an art.
I bet. I mean, what was the biggest challenge you encountered by filming?
We probably both have different ones. For me, it was getting him to cut information. I think anybody who has ever told a story of any kind, whether through film, by writing, you understand that the best story comes out when you pull away all of the extra and you get down to the heart of it. And that was really hard for him because he's had so much experience. He thought everything was important. And so for me, the hardest part was getting him to agree to cut information or to cut messages from some of his friends that just didn't go with the storyline. That's really hard when there are people you admire and respect, and they were so gracious as to give us their time, and then we didn't actually get to use them in the film. That was hard for him and for me.
And, we did 60 interviews all over the world. So we had about 70 hours of content, and just going through the 70 hours and, filtering it down to 90 minutes, that it's hard work. I mean, like Kelly said, there's a lot of good information. There's probably 20 hours of good information there. So we can't make a 20-hour movie. So what we actually did was, we made the movie, and then we made what's called God Bless Bitcoin Layer 2. So Layer 2 will, in about 2 weeks, have the interviews that we did. So if people want to take a deeper dive, you'll on Apple TV, Amazon Prime, you'll be able to go to those and watch the movie, but you also have access to 28 of the interviews.
How do you feel about the new administration in the US now, where Trump was taking office? And I mean, he's done some of the things he promised already. So he free draws, which I thought it was really good. But at the same time, he launched a meme coin. So how do you feel about it?
Trump has been very pro Bitcoin so far. His first term, he wasn't. So far in the second term, he is pro Bitcoin. So you mentioned, they freed Ross. But yesterday also, Trump signed an executive order that bans CBDCs in the United States, which is good. They authorized a crypto stockpile. That's not buying, Bitcoin, but it's basically preserving what we have, which is one step in the right direction. And then they also repealed what's called SAB 121 yesterday. So SAB 121 is the rule at the SEC that prevents banks from custody in Bitcoin. So now that that's removed, you'll see Bitcoin being integrated into the traditional financial system more and more here in the United States and eventually around the world. And then yesterday at Davos too, President Trump said he wants to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. And so he is very, very pro crypto. He's pro Bitcoin. And like you said, he's pro his Trump and Melania coins too, which personally, I don't think they have a lot of value.
What do you stay on ETF? Because I had some guests and they're saying, well, it goes against principles of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it's good plumbing for the traditional financial system because there are a lot of people who don't want to go out and hassle with buying Bitcoin directly and managing their private keys. So it gives them a mechanism, to go out and get exposure to Bitcoin without having the hassle of dealing with Bitcoin. And especially if people that have retirement accounts or IRA accounts, it gives them an easy path to get access to Bitcoin in their retirement account. So I think ETFs do have good utility. Personally, I think it's better to own Bitcoin directly especially if it's a taxable account, because I do think that in the future, direct ownership of Bitcoin will be tax-free in the United States. And if it's tax-free, then, you want to own the direct Bitcoin, because if you own a Bitcoin ETF, that's a security. Bitcoin ETFs won't be tax-free. And so, I think the direct ownership of Bitcoin is, more beneficial than owning ETFs.
This one is for you, Kelly, because I know you are the soul and the heart of the documentary. So when it comes to people, society, and culture, what do you think we need to propagate Bitcoin a little bit more?
I think it really comes down to just education. You can't do something if you don't know about it. And so the more that we spread the word, that we help educate people about the FUD that has been out there. A lot of people are scared of it because there have been so many misinformation campaigns launched by governments around the world about how Bitcoin is bad for the environment, for people. It's used for nefarious purposes. So the more that we can educate people about what it really is and how it really works, I think the better. And one of the things that we have out there for people just about that is a short film that's called What the FUD. And it just means, what is that fear, uncertainty, and doubt? And we go through, these are the most common misconceptions, and we bring in experts to explain the truth behind those misconceptions. I think if people can feel comfortable with it and understand it, their eyes will be open to it.
Yeah, if you go to our website, godblessbitcoin.com, the What the FUD and the movie are both there. You can watch them for free on our website.
Sure, you are super familiar with all the work that Bukele is doing in Max and Stacy in El Salvador. I think they are driving and they are showing how it's done. Are you also expecting a country FOMO coming in from, I don't know, Europe, Asia?
Yeah, I do think that Senator Lummis' bill has a good chance of passing. That would authorize the United States to create a strategic reserve of Bitcoin and not be able to sell it for 20 years. And so, we'll see how that works through Congress. And I'm sure if it passes through the House and the Senate, that President Trump would sign that into law.
Some of the companies, like, for example, Rumble, going in with maybe millions in purchasing. But other companies like Microsoft have been kind of more on the defense, saying, no, we don't want to expose our culture in Bitcoin yet. Do you think we'll see many more companies converting into the Bitcoin standard per se, or starting to exchange some of their fiat in 2025?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's so in the United States, what was preventing that? So the Financial Accounting Standards Board of the United States puts out what are called GAAP accounting rules, generally accepted accounting principles. And so prior to this year, it was very hard for public companies to own Bitcoin on their balance sheet without the Bitcoin hurting their balance sheet. And so those rules have been reformed starting in January this year. And so now if you have Bitcoin on your balance sheet, if it goes up in value, you could actually mark it up on your balance sheet. Prior to this year, you couldn't mark it up. You could only mark it down. And so I do expect more and more companies to be adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. Right now in the U.S., there's about 60 companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheets.
Are you still on the camp of Bitcoin being a store of value as opposed to a currency?
Well, right now in the United States, it definitely is, because we have not figured out that it's still taxable in the United States, so it doesn't make sense to use it as a currency. But I think if tax laws change, it could eventually become that here in the United States as it is in other parts of the world.
I agree.
What do you have to add to that?
No, but you're right. Yeah. It's the tax laws that are preventing it from being mass adopted as currency in the United States. But in other countries like Germany and Singapore, Portugal, Switzerland, Bitcoin is tax-free. So it is accepted more as currency in those countries.
How do you feel about, I'm going to say the bad word, how do you feel about crypto?
There are use cases for everything. And as long as you can value something that backs it, I'm okay. But just things that have nothing to back them, anything valuable or a network or anything, to me, it's just monopoly money.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, like Kelly said, we're both, lean towards Bitcoin Maxi. So Bitcoin is the dominant proof of work blockchain 94% of the value of proof of work blockchains are in Bitcoin, the value. So Bitcoin already won proof of work. There will be a dominant or maybe two dominant proof of stake blockchains. I don't think it's going to be Ethereum. I think Ethereum's controlled and, it is controlled. And, I do think Ethereum's broken. So I think it's probably going to be Solana, basically for US, and the Binance Smart Chain, the BNB token, for international, proof of stake. And that's where it looks like things are growing on Solana and Binance, and not so much on Ethereum.
Do you have anything else in your portfolio, like gold, stock, or just Bitcoin only?
Yeah, no, I run a crypto hedge fund. And so our goal is to outperform Bitcoin. So for us to outperform Bitcoin, we can't own Bitcoin, right? Because after we charge our fees, you would underperform. And so we're looking for investments that will outperform. And so what that leads us to be is a value manager in the blockchain space. So we look for undervalued ways to get exposure to Bitcoin. So we buy Bitcoin through like bankruptcy courts. We buy companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and we pay for those, we pay a price that's less than what their Bitcoin balance is. And so we find these weird ways to get exposure to Bitcoin at discounted prices.
Are you still expecting us to be in the 4-year cycle, meaning this technically should be the last final year before we go into a bear market?
Yeah, I do think like the cycles will continue. Our roadmap says like October of this year will probably likely be close to the peak. But I do not expect the 70 to 85% corrections like we've had through the last 3 cycles. We will have big corrections. It's normal for Bitcoin to have 30% corrections, even in the bull market. But, I don't think we'll have 70 to 80% corrections again.
Do you think retail is going to FOMO in at some point?
Yeah, I mean, eventually, yeah, the plumbing's there for them to do that. So here in the United States, most financial advisors, with like Merrill Lynch, Stifel Nicholas, Edward Jones, Raymond James, Wells Fargo advisors, their financial advisors aren't allowed to recommend Bitcoin. And with many of those firms, even if you call in and ask your financial representative to buy a Bitcoin ETF, they can't do it for them. And so eventually, once those financial advisors get the okay to allow their clients to buy Bitcoin, that's a whole new wave of people buying it. And that's coming this year.
I think so as well. I think we've seen a lot of blockers, like we said in the beginning, right? With the administration Biden put in place earlier. Now that all the blocks seem to be removed, or there is at least less pressure, I think there's going to be an incentive for company to stay in the US as opposed to going abroad and building their own story over there. So I'm actually really excited about it. I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. Do you have a target in mind for these top of the cycle?
Yeah, I mean, there are many models out there. There's the stock to flow model. There's, Metcalfe's law, power law. There's all sorts of models out there that people could look at. So, stock to flow model says base case is between 500,000 to 800,000, but it could be higher than that. What's more important are the moral and ethical aspects of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so there were certain things that we believe our current fiat system is either preventing us from doing or is encouraging us to do, which go against the basic moral tenets that we see in all of the sacred scriptures. So mostly what we should be doing that a lot of young people are not is being fruitful and multiplying. Because it is so expensive to raise a child and because housing is unaffordable, millennials are deciding just not to have children at all. And so if we continue down that path, think about those repercussions about our population in the world and how we're going to, continue as a race. But more importantly, they're missing out on the joys of family. And so we believe that God wants us to be happy. And one of the most important ways to do that is through family. And so if fiat does not allow that because of the money printer, Bitcoin, which has the cap of 21 million and holds its value, is a really great way for people to have here, especially in the United States, a store of value that would allow them to save not just for themselves, but generationally. So that's one. And then things that we should not be doing that we are able to do because of fiat is we shouldn't steal. Well, every time a government prints money, what they're doing is they are diluting your purchasing power, which is in essence stealing your time and your energy and your effort. And so we want a currency that does not allow for that. And even worse than stealing is killing, which is governments use fiat to wage war. If they had to go to their citizens and say, listen, I want to conduct this war, and they had to get their citizens' approval, a lot of these endless wars that we've been seeing would not be happening if we are on a bit. And the way they do that, is through printing money. If they want to do it, they print money and they go wage the war. And citizens have no say in that. But if we were on a Bitcoin standard, they wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that would drastically eliminate or reduce war. And so those were some of the religious and moral themes that we followed in the movie.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I learned about when we were making the movie, and I probably should have done this, but I didn't. But the Old Testament of the Bible is what Christians believe, what Jews believe, and what Muslims believe. So the Old Testament is
The
Abrahamic God. So, and so in the Old Testament, one of the books is Ezekiel, and it says in Ezekiel that it's a direct commandment from God. And so then that's what governments are doing all the time. They're stealing from us to go conduct, violence and destruction. And it's a direct commandment from God not to do that. And so that's why we put that in the movie too. And Bitcoin stops that. You can't dilute Bitcoin to go steal silently and go do these unjust wars. And so we believe that if the world was on a Bitcoin standard, it'd be more peaceful.
Thank you. I'm really grateful for all the work you guys have done. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for interviewing us and
helping us get the word out.
Yeah.
We appreciate it very much.
For people to learn more about the moral and ethical aspects of Bitcoin, go to our website. Go to godblessbitcoin.com. We've translated the movie into 7 different languages. So it's not dubbed, it's translated. So it's available in English, Spanish, French, Russian, Arabic, Hindi, and Mandarin. And so, it's there. We want this movie to, be seen by, in the native languages from, people around the world. And, it's free to download. You can go to the website and download the movie. You could host it on your own websites. You could share the movie. We want this, the word in this movie to spread.
We've also dubbed it. So we've tried to reach as many people as possible who might not be English speakers so that the message can be out there.
Yeah, and what people are doing, they're going and dubbing it in their, Hungarian.
Yeah.
What's that?
A Hungarian just dubbed it in Hungarian and sent it to us. And so we put that up there on our website.
Indonesian, too.
Indonesia.
So people are being proactive.
It's
downloading the movie and doing what they want with it. And we encourage people to do that.
Yeah, we love it.
Brian, Kelly, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Really appreciate it coming in.
You too, yes.
Enjoy the rest of the day.